And welcome back to our Minorum Gold YouTube channel. I'm here at the Sprott Natural Symposium here in Vancouver, and I'm here with Jayant Bhandari. Jayant, thanks for coming down to the show and talking with me.
Thanks for having me, Sunny.
Excellent. So you've been quite busy traveling around, and you also have your Capitalism and Morality conference this coming weekend as well. So we'll post some information there. But I just want to basically follow up on what we talked at PDAC earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
We talked extensively on India still being the the temple of gold, where there's still a lot of gold demand, but more so even China as well. So what I wanted to pick up on was first on the China aspect of things. You mentioned China is the place to be, to invest. There's a lot of growth there still. So just a quick update from earlier in the year. Is China still on that strong growth rate that is on a slower growth rate but still growing quite aggressively, and in terms of gold demand?
Sunny, one of the key things that I look for to understand the future of any society is what is happening to the culture of that society. Mm-hmm. And the more I look at Chinese, the more I see that they are increasingly developing the concept of reasoning, rationality and critical thinking. Mm-hmm. Which is something almost completely lacking, let's say in South Asia, Middle East or Africa, or even in a lot of parts of Latin America.
Right.
China is actually truly doing a very good job in that respect. And in my view, the intellectual ingredients to continue to grow are there in China. I'm very optimistic on China. Everything gives me a good sign, except that the media continues to complain about China,
right,
merely because China is not a democratic country. Mm-hmm. I actually don't care, and in fact, I prefer a non-democratic country.
Interesting. So in terms of gold demand now, do you still see gold demand there quite strong? I mean, we've seen some dips in the gold price over the last couple of weeks here. It is down probably, I think today it's down at 13.19, 13.20 as they're awaiting the Fed rate announcement today. But do you still see that going forward then as well?
Well, absolutely. I mean, see, all the nice things are happening in China, but remember, China has come into the international arena only for the last 3 decades. Mm-hmm. It was an isolated country before that. So these people are not diversified in terms of wealth. They are not diversified in terms of their passports and international living. So when people worry so much about these people diversifying into US dollar or gold or moving to Canada or the US, it's nothing new. This is something they had to do because there was so much pent up need to do all these things. And yes, gold demand continues in China from what I have seen.
Okay, interesting. And just to give you a couple of figures actually, in terms of the market value, if you look at the financial markets, the US market is $24.3 trillion, which is 38% of the world market value, and China is around $6.2 trillion at around 9.6% of the world market value. So still a lot of opportunity to invest in that market. It's the second largest in terms of market value. So let's move on to negative yields. I mean, we have the Fed rate announcement today coming pretty soon. See what they say. Can you just explain the notion of negative yields and with negative interest rates in several countries worldwide, and what does it really mean? Because I don't think people understand. You have a personal bank account, you have a negative interest rate, negative yield. What does it mean for that investor? Why not? Would they just pull out the money, invest in some precious metals, whatever it may be? I don't know.
Well, you see, the concept of negative yields is a new concept in the West.
Okay.
The concept of negative yields has been a concept in the Middle East, in Africa, in South Asia for forever. And the reason is that capital actually does not generate a positive return for you. Mm-hmm. Your capital has a tendency to get dissipated with time. And that is now starting to happen in the West. Your bonds provide you negative yields in the West today. Your bank accounts in many countries in Europe now offer you a negative interest rate, which means that your capital not only in real terms gets degenerated, even in nominal terms it gets degenerated. And it's easy to blame the Fed for all these things, but remember, their high rate of inflation should have kicked in because of all these QEs.
Right.
The reason all this is not happening is, in my view, because we have reached peak growth.
Okay.
And peak growth, in my view, is a result of two things. One is oppressive regulations. Regulations have become extremely oppressive for businesses and for people and entrepreneurs. And also, maybe we have just reached peak growth anyway.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So then, how about we now talk about, you mentioned QE. Do you think there's still going to be an ongoing program of QE from several countries? I mean, Japan's been talking about it. The US, I'm not sure. I mean, they're playing more with the interest rate. So what do you expect going forward with QE?
Well, when economies stagnate, what you should do is to pull back on regulations, streamline working of these companies, open up avenues for entrepreneurs and businesses to operate in. That isn't going to happen because the culture of today is such that every problem results into solutions that make the problem worse.
Right.
So they are not going to address the real issue, and also it's not a very politically positive things for the politicians and bureaucrats. So they are not going to do that. You can be assured of it. The only other thing that they can do is to keep the game of progress going. And the only way they can keep that game going is by printing more and more cash. It's not money. This is just currencies in the computer and paper currency. This is not money.
Right. So we're going to pretty much uncharted territory here. I guess to finish off then, where do you expect the gold price to go forward in the next, by the end of 2016, going to 2017? And also just a couple comments on the mining sector and how that would benefit from it or not.
Well, gold price, I think, will continue to go up. Of course, there will be periods of consolidation with gold, and which is very natural with anything.
Yeah.
The reason is that, in my view, the only thing that affects gold price positively is negative yields. Because in a negative yielding environment, a zero yielding gold is very, very good.
Right.
And that is exactly the reason why people in the Middle East and South Asia have historically bought so much gold. And I think eventually Western people will buy more and more gold for investment purposes and to protect their surplus going forward. And that will result into shortage of gold and hence increase in price of gold. I don't really have a prediction on where the price is going, but I'm very happy to own it and hold it.
Okay, interesting. And just to finish off, one last thing on the on corruption in terms of gold imports into India. I mean, I just read something yesterday that they had the worst performance in terms of imports to its lowest level because they had these new regulations coming in terms of the import tariffs. They increased that. We mentioned that in March at the PDAC. Just a quick comment on black gold. And,
okay, so
corruption,
absolutely every regulation in that country comes up not for the benefit of the society, but to accrue the most bribes for the bureaucrats and politicians. Everything is based on corruption. They have about 11.5% import duty on gold. So the price on the street should be 111% of the international price. It is actually 105% of the international price today. And I checked it this morning. And the reason why it is trading at almost 5% discount to its landed official price is because most of the gold is coming into India through smuggling. And smugglers, bureaucrats and politicians, as a result, are making an absolute fortune. This will continue, but gold price will not trade. The imported golds will reflect the real import into India. You have to understand how much is being smuggled in.
Okay, I understand. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jayant, for being on the segment here. If you want to find out more about Jayant, you can please contact him. We'll put the information below. And we'll also inform you of the Capitalism and Morality Conference this weekend, as he has some special guest speakers as Rick Rule and several other speakers as well, talking about capitalism and morality. Thanks, Jayant.
Thank you very much, Sunny.
Okay, excellent.